Count Dooku is hands down the most underrated character in the Star Wars franchise. Of the Sith we see in the movies, he's the middle apprentice of sorts, stuck between the iconic Darth Maul and the legendary Darth Vader. He didn't quite have the striking aesthetics of either of his fellow apprentices, though his preference for capes shows that he certainly had style. But Dooku made up for this lack of a cool factor with character, especially in the Clone Wars and the expanded universe. His political ideals are central to his character, being what drove him away from the Jedi and eventually the Republic. Dooku's professed ideals are generally seen in a positive light by most fans. After all, his criticisms of the Republic were strikingly accurate. But were those ideals something he truly believed in, or were they just a facade? What did Count Dooku really believe, and were his convictions right?
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
The Jedi Order's problem is Yoda. No being can wield that kind of power for centuries without becoming complacent at best or corrupt at worst. He has no idea that it's overtaken him. He no longer sees all the little cumulative evils that the Republic tolerates and fosters, from slavery to endless wars, and he never asks, why are we not acting to stop this? Live alongside corruption for too long, and you no longer notice the stench. This quote from Dooku has been making the rounds lately. It's from the Legends novel Yoda, Dark Rendezvous, and it's gained traction because it's accurate to a degree. There are a few flaws with this assessment, which we'll talk about later, but in a general sense, it's a very astute analysis of the problems with the Jedi Order. If you clicked on this video thinking the answer to our title question was yes, it's probably because of this quote and the ideological outlook it represents. At his heart, Dooku was an idealist, and always had been. At the core of his ideals was a fierce dislike for the Republic, of which he was a harsh critic even during his time as a Jedi Master. Dooku saw the Republic as hopelessly corrupt and relentlessly exploitative, a tool the wealthy core worlds used as a bludgeon against the poorer worlds of the Rim. As he grew older, he began to believe that the Republic was unfixable and that the galaxy needed a restart, a seismic civilizational shift. Dooku was also highly critical of the Jedi Order. Though his criticisms of the Republic were initially divorced from his criticisms of the Jedi, he eventually saw the two as part of the same problem. The Jedi, he believed, were too deeply involved with the Republic. They were unable, and unwilling he thought, to stop the evils that plagued the galaxy. These ideals became the basis of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Dooku's words inspired separatists the galaxy over, giving them common ideals to rally around. As head of state for the CIS, Dooku constantly decried the moral failings of the Republic and vowed to stand for the oppressed peoples of the galaxy. He claimed to be building a better galaxy, one without tyrannical central governments and the mass exploitation the Republic had tolerated. All of that's well and good, but if you're at all familiar with politics, you know full well that there's usually a difference between what politicians say and what they believe. Dooku is no exception. When considering his ideals, people tend to forget or leave out the fact that he was a Sith Lord. That makes a difference. The Sith had their own set of ideals after all, and the fact that Dooku was a secret Sith means it's possible, or maybe even probable, that he had other beliefs he kept under wraps as well. But we don't have to speculate about that. The Revenge of the Sith novelization features several scenes from Dooku's perspective, which gives us a detailed look at what the man actually believed. Here's a snippet. He's the icon of the separatist movement. It's a public face. He is to the Confederacy of Independent Systems what Palpatine is to the Republic, the living symbol of the justice of its cause. This is the public story. The truth is more complicated. For the most part, Dooku's criticisms of the Republic and the Jedi were genuine beliefs of his, but his professed solution was a lie. What Dooku actually wanted the galaxy to look like was much, much different from what the other separatists wanted. The new government, a government clean, pure, direct. None of the messy scramble for the favor of ignorant rabble and subhuman creatures that made up the Republic he so despised. The government he would serve would be authority personified. At war's end, the aliens would be crushed, stripped of all they possessed, and their systems and their wealth would be given into the hands of the only beings who could be trusted with them. Dooku knew full well that his master was building a galactic empire, and he was completely on board. More than that, actually, he believed in the Empire far more than Sidious did and wanted it to be far more extreme, far more repressive, and far more speciest than Sidious ever intended for it to be. His talk of corruption in the Republic had been doublespeak. Sure, he detested the inefficiencies of the Senate and the loathsome decadence of the core, but he also hated non-humans and saw their very existence as corruption of another sort. He was a totalitarian, bent on bringing the entire galaxy under a rigid, brutal hierarchy, a hierarchy that he would be at the top of. Despite all he criticized the Jedi Order for not doing enough to fight slavery, he wanted to enslave pretty much everyone. Speaking of the Jedi Order, he had a vision for them as well. Dooku knew that Sidious planned to wipe out the Jedi Order, but also that there would likely be survivors. Dooku didn't want to have these survivors hunted down and destroyed, he wanted them converted. Out of the ashes of the Jedi Order, he sought to build a Sith army, which, he believed, would be led by a fallen Anakin Skywalker who would serve as his underling in the New Order. He envisioned this army as the fist of the Empire, a brutal force that would destroy anything and everything that threatened the immutable order he envisioned for the galaxy. Like the Jedi Order, this Sith army would have recruited Force sensitives from around the galaxy, but with one small difference. Where the Jedi allowed the parents of Force sensitives to refuse to give up their children, the Sith army would not have. All the Force sensitives in the galaxy were to be conscripted into the Empire's red right hand and forced to act accordingly to the will of the Sith Lords. As you can probably tell by now, there was a hell of a lot of contrast between what Dooku preached and what he really believed. But there was a common constant. He believed the Republic was hopelessly corrupt. That, of course, was correct. It's a no-brainer, honestly, for anyone who's familiar with the events of the prequels. A lot of what he criticized the Republic and the Jedi for was also fairly accurate. The Republic was indeed relentlessly exploitative and mired in corruption, while the Jedi were far too close to it and their ability to do good was hampered by that. However, his solution was beyond awful. His vision of a new order wasn't just wrong, it wasn't just evil, it was monstrous. To state the obvious, enslaving every non-human in the galaxy and installing a fascist state would make the Republic's problems worse, not better. Even if that plan could somehow fix problems with the Republic, it's still morally unacceptable. Dooku didn't really believe that the Republic was too oppressive. He believed it wasn't oppressive enough. And while many of his observations about flaws of the Republic and Jedi were accurate, others were less so. He didn't just hate the Republic for its corruption, but also because it didn't brutalize non-humans enough for his liking. He didn't just hate the Jedi for failing to solve the galaxy's problems, but also because he thought the Jedi weren't authoritarian enough. We mentioned earlier that his analysis of the Jedi Order had a flaw. This was that Dooku's implication that the Jedi weren't fighting slavery or any of the Republic's faults at all wasn't true, and Dooku knew that too. When he claimed that the Jedi weren't fighting against the problems with the Republic, what he really meant was they weren't fighting those problems properly. He believed the Jedi Order should have forced its will on the galaxy, that it should have broken from the Republic and ruled the galaxy directly. This wasn't just something he had come to believe as a Sith Lord, it was his reason for leaving the Jedi Order, a belief he held before he fell to the dark side. You might be scratching your head right now and wondering why there was such a contrast between what Dooku believed and what he advocated for. The answer was simple. He was acting as controlled opposition. The Separatists were a bogeyman composed of nearly every group that the Sith saw as a threat. Dooku's goal in forming the CIS was to destroy those factions, to destroy Separatist causes before they could threaten the Empire. By and large, the ideals Dooku championed were actually ideals that he despised. He may once have believed in them, but those days were long over by the time of the Clone Wars. As we've discussed in prior videos, the cause of the Separatists was just. The Republic was corrupt, the Jedi were too caught up in it, and the Outer Rim was badly exploited. But the Separatists' cause was not Dooku's cause. His cause was, in fact, antithetical to the Separatist cause. His was the cause of slavery, of exploitation, and of ruthless totalitarianism. His was the cause of the Sith, and it was most definitely not righteous. So that's our look at whether or not Count Dooku was right. But what do you think? Would you like us to take a look at the views of other major Star Wars characters? Let us know your recommendations in the comments section below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next video.